Hey, everybody. Happy Saturday. How are you all? It's good to see you. I know it's been a minute. Hey, help me, Rhonda. How are you? Hi, Lisa. How are you? Good to see you. Hey, David. Good to see you. Hey, Betsy. Hi, Jill. How are you doing tonight? Hey, Rosescheid. Hey, JDR. Thanks for the feedback, but Tech Death Hippie is one of my faves, so I'm sorry. Hi, Lynn. How are you? Good to see you. Thanks, Lisa. I had a blast talking to the captain. It was great. Thank you so much. Hey, Dave. How are you doing tonight? It's so good to see you. Thanks for being here. Hey, Polygraph. How are you? Good to see you. Hey, Paris. How are you, my dear? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. I needed to take a couple of days off, guys. It was really getting to me emotionally. The cases just keep hitting with the kids, and it's just so hard. And so I needed to take a mental break. Hi, James. How are you? Hey, Deborah Edwards. Good to see you. Hey, country girl. How are you? Oh, my favorite, asparagus. That's my absolute favorite vegetable. And strawberries are my favorite fruit. You're doing great, David. Yeah, Rose, we've got storms here too. So they would be heading your way. Hey, Maria, how are you, my dear? Good to see you. Much love, you're coming your way. I've missed you the last couple of days. Oh my gosh, I absolutely love asparagus. I can't get enough of it. Hey, Shady Lady. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Oh, Lisa, thank you so much. I may do that sometime. I haven't even thought about that, but yeah, I could do that, I suppose. I've been doing my eyes and my eye makeup for a very, very long time. So once you learn, it's all about practicing, really, Lisa. It's all it is. I think anybody can do it. It's just a matter of practice, practice, practice. And what looks good on one person may not look good on you. So that's the other thing. It's finding your color, your color schemes, and things like that. So I hope everybody had a good start to the weekend. I know there was a lot going on today. We had the Kentucky Derby. Sounds like it was an absolute crazy, crazy race. Um, it was a very, very long, the long shot won. And they said something about that hasn't happened since like 1913 or something like that. Um, but I missed it. I love the Kentucky Derby, but I'm going to have to go back and watch the race because I was busy. I was cooking. So I absolutely missed it. Hey, Rescue All the Dogs. How are you? So good to see you. Rhubarb. Rhubarb pie is really good. And of course, who doesn't like potatoes, right? Yeah. Well, thank you, Polygraph. I I have obviously I have blue eyes, so I'm really funny because um I like earth tones and mauve colors on my eyes. So yeah, it was like crazy, crazy, crazy. Um, so what else? We had the coronation today. For those who care, King Charles was coronated today. I actually watched it with my grandson, my 5-year-old, if you can believe that. He loves Big Ben, and we have family that lives in London, so he is well aware of that, and he wanted to watch. He wanted to see some of the famous places, and we talked about it. He asked all kinds of really good questions. And so it was kind of fun to watch it with him. I was absolutely floored that he was so um, like on point watching it. I was like, um, at 5, I probably wouldn't have wanted to sit there and watch that, but he loved the horses. He loved all of the regalia. Um, he liked the music, and it was very interesting. So, um, yeah, I like the history behind it. Not so much the monarchy as it is today. I don't think that they are as relevant, obviously, and I think that they have, in a lot of ways, it would probably be better to just do away with the monarchy completely. But people that live there, they like it for the most part. They like them. And so I think that's why they are still around. But if anybody knows how to put on a parade and pomp and circumstance, it is definitely the British, for sure. I think it was interesting that it rained. It was pouring yesterday and it rained today, so that made it kind of interesting for them, but oh well. See what else is going on. I did talk to Fig today. I've actually been in contact with him for the last few days, but I wanted to let you know that I did talk to him today. And yes, Harry did go. He sat in the row behind his aunt, Princess Anne, and he was definitely there, and he was all smiles. So That was pretty much it. He spent, I think, a lot of time talking with his cousins, Beatrice and Eugenie or Eugenia. Eugenie. I can't remember how to pronounce her name. Eugenie. Um, but anyway, I think that they're close. Obviously, they grew up together. They're all close in age. So, so anyway, I talked to Fig, and Tristan's trial was supposed to start in LA on Wednesday, but they had an extra day of my brain, jury selection. So the jury selection took longer than they thought, so it ran into Wednesday. And actually, because of that, they ended up not starting the trial until yesterday. They had opening arguments yesterday. And Fig is there along with Scott, who, if you remember, was the person who went camping, the cousin that went brother-in-law who went camping with Tristan with his two little boys that weekend. So he was there. Other family members, and Erica was there, Tristan's wife. And so I did post about it. And I'll talk about it a little bit in our true crime discussion. Fig told me that he thinks that they told them that the trial is going to last about 5 to 6 weeks. The defense will have their opening statement on Monday. So that's pretty much where we are. And the prosecution, no, Harry's wife did not go. She is still back in California because today was their son Archie's 4th birthday, and she did not want to miss her son's 4th birthday. So she stayed home, and Harry was only going to be in London for the coronation, and then he was leaving. He wasn't staying for any of the celebratory stuff or anything. He was leaving and going back to California for the birthday. That's all I can report on that. So I hope everybody's doing well. It's good to see all of you. Yeah, Dave, I know about the whole Charles as the king name, but that's his name, and I couldn't see him picking a different name. Truly. So since we were talking about Tristan's case, let's go ahead and go over what happened yesterday. So Fig told me that they are in the O.J. Simpson courtroom and that the judge would not allow cameras in the courtroom at all. And so it's not being televised. But he did say that there are plenty of reporters there and television stations. There's somebody there doing a documentary. And so they're obviously getting coverage for Tristan out there. He said that they were very respectful and did a good job, which I was happy to hear. So they went on to say that there was a 5-year-old wound that was reopened in the criminal courts Friday for those who lost Tristan Baudet, a beloved husband, scientist, and father. He was killed in June 2018 while camping at the Malibu Creek State Park in Malibu, California, when he was shot in the head as he and his 2 daughters were sleeping in their tent in the early morning hours of June 20th. I think it was around 4:45 when he was shot. Sometime between 4 and 4:45. A relative that they were there with at the time heard the girls crying and went to check on him. And Tristan's girls were 2 and 4 at the time, and they were trying to wake him up. Anthony Rauda is who is on trial for this. He is the man who has been charged for murdering Tristan. He has chosen not to be in court for opening statements in his trial, and he won't be through at least a portion of the trial. The 46-year-old has waived his rights to be present. He was convicted last year of after being accused of attacking sheriff deputies while he was in custody. He is he's got this guy's got a real anger problem, real anger issue. Hey, Indy Pam, good to see you. How are you? The opening statement for the prosecution on Friday was 3 hours long, and the prosecutor tried in his opening statement to connect Rauda to each of the 16 charges that he is facing. He has 1 count of murder, 10 counts of attempted murder, and 5 burglary charges. He was arrested 4 months after Tristan Beaudet's murder or death. And while he was living in the Santa Monica Mountains, he was armed with a rifle. Prosecutors will tie that rifle to Tristan Beaudet's murder and one of the attempted murder charges. They've laid out some of the evidence that they plan to present, showing the trail of physical and digital evidence Rauda left that ultimately led to his arrest in the wilderness. Tristan Beaudet's wife, Erica, was also in court on Friday with a large support group as she had to relive much of the trauma that she has endured over the past 5 years. They showed multiple photos of Tristan and the girls, and she chose not to look at those. And you can understand why. The defense, like I said, is going to present their opening statement on Monday. And as I said in my community post today, our hearts and prayers are with Fig Solves and our good friend Fig and their family as they try to maneuver through these uncharted waters of how do you come to terms with a person who has killed a beloved family member in cold blood for no reason, absolute no reason at all. And how do you wrangle with that as you're watching this trial of this man? Because this is another aspect that these families of these victims have to go through. And when we're sitting here, as reporting on these cases, I really have decided that I don't like the word content creator, because it's really not creating content. For me, it's reporting the news of the cases and the facts of the cases. I'm truly not really creating anything. I'm just finding the best way I can to get the information to you about these cases that we all talk about. But as I was thinking about it and thinking about the Beaudet family and what Fig has been going through for the last 5 years, waiting up until this point to have to go to trial, it makes me wonder about, what's going to be happening with the other trials that we know are coming very quickly. We're going to have the Idaho murder trial, and we're going to have Delphi at some point here. And so we have family members that have to go, like I said, go through this. Now, Tristan's trial is in LA County, and Erica moved. She moved as her and Tristan had already planned to move to Northern California for their jobs near San Francisco. So stop and think about that. This trial is being held in downtown Los Angeles, and it's a trial for 5 to 6 weeks long. This poor woman lives an entire state away, basically, up in the northern part of California. So for her to have to take 5 or 6 weeks off to be there every day, that would be a lot. The same for having a support group with her through the trial. They all have lives and jobs that that they have, responsibilities for. So I think we just need to remember all of that when we're thinking about these cases and the trials and what these family members and these victims' families go through after after these crimes. It is literally heartbreaking. And Fig is such a wonderful person, and he's really a strong person, but even strong people have, breaking points. So I just want everybody to hold him up and keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Indy says, I feel so bad for them. If Fig is any sign of how good their family is, they surely didn't deserve this. And that is the truth. He is everything that I can find and know about Tristan is that he was just an amazing person and really was contributing great things, not only to his family, but to the world, because he was heavily into cancer research for Allergan, which is the pharmaceutical company that he was working for. And, Fig told me he was working on some really amazing stuff with viruses and looking at, there was like almost like breakthroughs were happening for him in his research. So we lost a lot when this crime happened. And not only did the family lose, but society in general lost out, because this guy was going to go far. He was going to make a difference in cancer research. So, hey, that's interesting. Interesting name. Like it. Thank you for being here. So, yeah, he did have a bright future for sure. Absolutely. And so that's pretty much what's going on there. And I will, like I said, continue to stay in contact with Fig closely as he gives me updates on what's going on, and we'll continue to talk about that. Oh, and by the way, guys, I just want you to know, because I've been talking about it now since January, actually. And now I've decided that I am definitely going to switch up my live streams. And instead of going live 3 nights a week, I'm going to only go live 2 nights a week. And I'm going to switch one of my days to during the day. And I believe that will be on, I'm going to do that on Thursday. But I'm not, I haven't got it set in stone yet. I really wanted to do it on Tuesday, but then I thought, well, that leaves me 2 lives like at night, like within just a couple days of each other. I didn't know how that might work. So I may have to just play with it and see how it goes. I don't want to interfere with some of my other creators that I know are very active during the day, and I don't want to overlap them and cause any issues. So I'll be looking at that. But anyway, it may be Tuesday this week. I may try it and just see how it goes. So don't be surprised. But like I said, I will give you my thumbnail on when the live is going to be. I always put those out on my channel so you guys will know when it's happening. I wanted to tell you guys something that I thought was interesting that I read about. Two moms cracked a 28-year-old cold case murder with the help of Coca-Cola. And I thought that this was a really interesting story, and I wanted to talk to you about it. So the killer's co-workers grabbed vital evidence out of a trash can and brought justice for the murder victim, Amanda Stavik. So the DNA evidence from this plastic cup of Coke led to the conviction of a man for the rape and murder of 18-year-old Amanda Stavik almost 30 years after the crime occurred. The young girl's body was discovered floating in a river after she had gone missing 3 days earlier while out jogging with her dog. And this happened on the 24th of November in 1989. And Amanda, or Mandy Stavik, disappeared shortly after leaving her home in Acme, Washington. Her body was found 3 days later on the South Fork of the Nooksack River, and the case quickly became a homicide investigation. Amanda, or Mandy, grew up in the rural town of Acme, located near the Canadian border, with her parents, her two brothers, and a sister. She was a very popular student and an athlete at Mount Baker High School, where she played basketball and volleyball. Mandy was talented. She played the saxophone and she could speak Japanese and use sign language. On November 24th, 1989, Mandy went out for her daily jog in the neighborhood with her dog, Kyra. And Kyra ended up returning home alone, and Mandy was never seen again. When the teenager failed to come home from her jog, her family became very concerned, and they contacted the authorities. And a massive search effort was launched with hundreds of volunteers combing the woods and the fields surrounding Acme. Mandy's body was not found until 3 days later, when a man out for a walk discovered her partially clothed body in the Nooksack River. She had been sexually assaulted and drowned. An autopsy determined that she had also suffered blunt force trauma to her head. Male DNA was found on her body. Despite extensive efforts by law enforcement, including multiple interviews, the case remained unsolved for nearly 30 years with no leads and no suspects. That all changed in 2017 when a breakthrough in DNA analysis led to the arrest of Mandy's elusive killer. Decades later, during a casual encounter at a water park, Marilee Anderson and Heather Backstrom, who both attended Mount Baker High School but were not well acquainted at the time, struck up a conversation about Mandy's unsolved murder as their children played on the water slides. Out of the blue, Backstrom explained, "I know who killed her." Taken aback by the statement, Anderson responded, "I do too." Intrigued by each other's claims, the two women shared their personal experiences with a local man around the time of Mandy's murder. According to Anderson, Timothy Bass, a fellow Mount Baker High School alum, came to her house one evening a few years after Mandy's murder, and he claimed that he had been out hunting and needed to use a phone. Although Bass attempted to make a call, Anderson could hear the beeping sound of a dead phone line, causing her to suspect that Bass wasn't dialing a legitimate number and had lied about needing to make a call. Then Anderson said Bass walked into her bedroom and professed his love for her. admitting that he used to drive by her house. She was alone with a man who she realized was a predator. Anderson repeatedly refused his advances, but he persisted in trying to coax her into the bedroom with him. Eventually, she threatened to call the police and managed to get him to leave her house. Backstrom had a similar disturbing encounter with Tim Bass just a few months before Mandy's murder. Backstrom was only 15 years old at the time, while Bass was 21. After a softball game, Backstrom was riding in a truck with her soon-to-be husband and Tim Bass. She said suddenly Bass began to aggressively flirt with her, complimenting her eyes and running a pen along her knees. It made her feel very uneasy. After the incident, she made sure to avoid contact with him in their small community. The women realized that their suspicions could actually carry weight, and they decided to reach out to a detective with the Whatcom Sheriff's Office to share their concerns about Tim Bass. Timothy Forrest Bass grew up in the small town of Acme, located near the Canadian border. And at the time of Mandy's murder, Bass was 22 years old and living in the same neighborhood as the victim and her family. Bass had a criminal record, including convictions for burglary and assault. In 1986, 3 years before Mandy was found dead, Bass was convicted of raping a 17-year-old girl in nearby Skagit County, and he was released in prison in 1989. Mandy would be killed that very same year. Bass had numerous run-ins with the law, and during this time, including arrests for drug possession, theft, and assault. He also had several restraining orders filed against him by women who claimed that he had harassed them or threatened them. At the time of Mandy's disappearance, you guys, Bass was working at a nearby paper mill and had been on investigators' radar for years, but they didn't have enough evidence to charge him. However, when a new technique called genetic genealogy was developed, it allowed investigators to use DNA evidence to trace Bass's family tree and identify him as a suspect. In 2017, Bass was married with 3 children and was employed as a delivery driver for a bakery. When the police first met with him, they became suspicious because Bass claimed that he didn't recognize or remember Mandy Stavik. Everyone in the community knew who Mandy was. Detective Bohe said that it was evident Bass was lying because Mandy jogged past his home every single day. It was highly unlikely that he didn't know who she was. However, Bass refused to provide his DNA to the police, claiming he didn't trust them. This made him the prime suspect. But proving his guilt without DNA evidence would be a challenge for law enforcement. They turned to Timothy's colleague at the bakery for help. Kim Wagner was eager to help with this investigation, and she closely monitored Timothy's behavior and noticed that he always wore gloves during his deliveries and would take his trash home with him, which seemed suspicious. Finally, Kim witnessed Timothy drink from a plastic cup and then throw it away in the trash. She quickly retrieved the cup and kept it in her desk drawer. When she handed it over to police, it was sent to a crime lab for analysis. The DNA test results were astounding, revealing that Bass's DNA was a 1 in 11 quadrillion match to the DNA found at the crime scene. He was linked to the murder through genetic material found on Mandy's body. When confronted with the forensic results, Bass initially denied any involvement in the crime. But with the odds stacked against him, he eventually confessed to raping and killing Mandy. He tried to claim that he had slept with Mandy and suggested they were having some sort of a secret relationship, but investigators found absolutely no evidence to support this. And he was immediately charged in connection with her death. The case went to trial in 2019, and Bass was found guilty of first-degree murder, first-degree rape, and kidnapping. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Mandy's family finally had closure and justice for their daughter's death, but the tragedy of her murder left a lasting mark on their community. Her case highlights the power of new DNA technologies such as genetic genealogy in solving cold cases that had previously been unsolved or unsolvable. While there are concerns about privacy and the potential misuse of DNA data, many investigators see these new techniques as valuable tools in solving crimes and bringing resolutions to these victim families. The use of DNA technology in solving cases, and cold cases especially, has revolutionized the field of criminal investigation, and it has played a significant role in bringing justice to victims of violent crime. Although it took almost 30 years to catch her killer, the persistence and dedication of law enforcement, combined with the use of innovative forensic technique, ensured that justice was ultimately served for Mandy and her family. If you're waiting for a loved one's cold case to be solved, there's still hope. And you guys know that I always talk about hope and how we should never take hope away from these families. I heard for nearly 6 years in the Delphi case that they were never going to solve it. It was never going to be solved. There was absolutely no way. They had bumbled and fumbled the case so badly. It was just never going to happen. And it used to really anger me, because when you do that and say those kinds of things, all you do is try to strip the family of hope. And when you don't have hope, you don't have anything. And with technology constantly moving, and we're learning more and more and more in the realm of forensics, that, yes, Maria, I did hear about it, that, you know, there's always a chance that they are going to find new ways to test DNA, even smaller amounts of DNA. They're getting closer to being able to do that. I mean, more and more, it takes smaller and smaller amounts of DNA to do these tests. So, you know, don't give up. And I think it's awesome that how these two women who had this experience with this predator 30 years ago and knew he was bad news then, and then they meet up happenstantly at a swimming pool place locally with their kids, start talking about it and realize that they think it's the same person. And I'm glad that they went to police with their thoughts. It's just like I've been saying all along. If you have a reason to believe somebody committed a crime of some sort, don't talk yourself out of it. Simply go to the police, go to your local law enforcement, and tip in what you know, and let them be the ones to decide if what you know is relevant or not. So anyway, I just wanted to give you guys that story. I thought it was really amazing. And And it really gives hope to a lot of people out there because there are so many cold cases. As we know, Steve from True Crime Web has been off in Texas working on a cold case, and you know, um, they're everywhere. There are so many cases out there that need to be covered and talked about, and try to bring the spotlight back onto, and getting fresh eyes to look at them, getting different investigators to look at them, because a lot of times that's all it takes is a new person to examine things and see something that may have been missed. So, but yes, Maria, I did see that there was another mass shooting in Allen, Texas at an outlet mall. It sounds like children were a victim in this case again. I haven't heard how many people. I saw a photo on Twitter that had bodies outside of H&M covered up. It looked like there may have been at least 4 or 5 that I saw. So very sad what's going on with all of these shootings. It's just, I think people are becoming numb to it, frankly. Hey, Mitzi, how are you? Mitzi says that she recently watched a show about this case. So great these women were at the right place and time to make these connections. Yeah, it's just incredible that they were able to do that 30 years later. I think that that's what's so amazing about it. It is heartbreaking, the many cold cases that are out there and that are not even being looked at. They're not being worked anymore. It's just, we don't have any information. We don't have any new information. And it's just like, yes, Mitzi. Yeah, they made the arrest. They caught him. Yep. Um, oh, I hear you, David. I have no desire to go to that state for any reason, but I didn't before. But yeah, no, no, not a place for me. I'll stay out of it. I've driven through it, but I have no desire to be there. Yeah, Sharon, I think that's, I get it. I understand. I'm like, you just look at what's going on and it just seems, um, I really don't know what to think. I just don't know what to think. But I think it's going to take, frankly, honestly, I think it's going to take more than prayer to get this ship righted. I just do. And I've said before, and I don't want to get on a soapbox about it on my channel because I really try to keep politics out of this. And it's really hard to do that sometimes. But when our children aren't reason enough to fix what is broken, we are lost, in my opinion. And we have children dying in mass murder in their school where they're supposed to be safe. And we won't do what it takes to prevent it. We all know what it takes to prevent it. We all know what would work. And yet they fight over it. And I'm like, how many more children have to die? How many more children have to die and be buried? And how many more people have to say, our prayers are with this town or this town or this town or this school? I mean, I'm over it, you guys. I'm so angry about it. I just can't even. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much. You're so kind. You be safe out there. You go drive and be careful. So I worry about our kids, and like I said, I still have one grandson in high school, and I still have my little grandson, my 5-year-old that's gonna start kindergarten in the fall, and I am worried, really worried, about him being in school. And yeah, Mitzi, it's right. It is truly right. It's just not the place that it used to be that it once was. It's just not. We become a battleground, and it's all about wielding these weapons that no person should have access to. Nobody needs weapons that shoot so many rounds at one time. All those weapons were designed for was to kill massively large amounts of people, and our military carry those weapons, and there's no reason that an average person should have them. So there you go. That's it for me. I don't want to get into a political discussion on my channel because it won't go well. It never does. They always tell you don't talk about politics and don't talk about religion. So I try to keep that out so that, people don't get um too upset. But the gun issue, we have to start addressing it. We have to start addressing what's happening here because it's not working. um it's just not. So let's move on, and I wanted to talk to you about the Suzanne Morphew case simply because she's been on my mind. I posted on my community page this week about her. Mother's Day is coming. She went missing on Mother's Day, and so it's just sad. 3 years ago this Mother's Day, Suzanne went missing. She left her Salida, Colorado home to go on a bike ride and never returned. And her husband, who was arrested in May of 2021 and charged with the murder of Suzanne, and then just this past year, they on the day they were supposed to start the trial, they dropped the charges against him with the knowledge, knowing that they could bring the charges again, because the prosecution dropped the charges because they said they needed more time to find Suzanne's body. She's never been found, but investigators believe wholeheartedly that she was killed and that Barry Morphew is responsible. Now, Barry Morphew is 55, and he just filed a lawsuit. And many people in the legal arena say that this lawsuit he's filed is a sham, and it's a thinly veiled attempt to overshadow the anniversary of her death, or her disappearance, and to make it all about him. He is a narcissist, and there's no doubt about it. But anyway, it was a shock to everyone when he was arrested, and it was a shock to everyone when the charges were dismissed. I think everybody was like, what is going on? But the case was dropped without prejudice, and that means that they can refile charges against him at any time. On Tuesday, this past Tuesday, 7 days before the anniversary of her disappearance, he filed a $15 million federal civil rights lawsuit against the 17th Judicial District Attorney in the case, Linda Stanley, and various other local officials. And he's accusing them of wrongfully arresting, jailing, and prosecuting him for a crime he didn't commit. In the 185-page filing, Barry Morphew accused Stanley and other officials of irreparably damaging his name and reputation with conspiracy to violate his state and federal constitutional rights. He's also accusing authorities of conspiring to wrongfully arrest him by fabricating evidence, concealing exculpatory evidence, and conducting a reckless investigation that culminated in his wrongful prosecution. In addition to seeking a 7-figure settlement, Morphew's lawyers are also requesting Stanley and other named prosecutors face punishment up to and including disbarment. The uncanny timing of this filing has not been lost on Suzanne's friends, and it's her family. They say that this is all for show. I think this lawsuit is crazy, said Tisha Leeway, an owner of a local tanning shop who became friendly with the Morphews in 2019. It's a show. It's all a part of a fake show, and it doesn't surprise me one bit. Just because the charges were dropped, it doesn't mean that he's still not under investigation. It's still an open case, and he is still the top prime suspect. So for his attorney to come out and say that he was falsely accused or whatever, it's all for show. They filed it right before the year anniversary of his wife going missing, and this is just their opinion. But Barry and his attorney decided to put themselves in the spotlight because they didn't want to make it about Suzanne. Well, when asked whether she believed the timing of the lawsuit to be coincidental, Tisha responded, "No, I think this was done on purpose." How many months has the case been dropped? And they chose to do it a week before the anniversary to put this spotlight back on Barry. It's all about Barry, but it shouldn't be. It should all be about Suzanne. Suzanne is the victim here and not Barry, and Barry is not a victim of anything. But I'm hearing that stuff that was barred from being said in court might come out now because of the lawsuit. The lawsuit could backfire and make Barry look more guilty than ever. And let's hope it does. Because this man, I believe, is fully guilty. An attorney for Morphew declined to comment on Tisha's claims. Barry Morphew's suit was filed by 3 different law firms and named more than 30 defendants, including Chaffee County, the Sheriff's Office and Board of Commissioners, the 11th Judicial District Attorney Linda Stanley, her staff, and the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and a few FBI agents. The complaint alleges that investigators lied and withheld and manufactured information to suit a hastily drawn theory that Barry Morphew murdered Suzanne in a fit of rage over an affair that she was having with an old high school friend and hid her body sometime between the morning of May 9th and early May 10th. It also alleges that the named officials conspired to deprive Morphew of his constitutional rights and later tried to conceal the knowing and reckless misconduct and to protect one another from liability for depriving Barry Morphew of his constitutional rights. As a result of the defendant's conduct, Barry was charged, arrested, and prosecuted, and his property was seized for a crime that he did not commit. As a result of the defendant's conduct, Barry spent 5 months in jail, approximately 6 more months wearing a GPS ankle monitor with severe restrictions on his movement, and almost a year defending against the criminal charges. To this date, Barry's property remains in the CCSD's possession. In a statement, attorney Jane Brylson said Barry Morphew's constitutional rights were trampled on and his daughters have suffered great harm, and we will not tolerate such abuses of power. Last month, another of his attorneys, Iris Eiton, filed a complaint against DA Stanley and her office accusing the prosecutor of unethical behavior and misconduct during the course of their investigation. And during a press conference, she claimed that Morphew was 100% innocent, wrongly accused, and then railroaded through the system. She then outlined what she perceived to be 12 ethical violations by Stanley's team, which included allegations of lying in court and giving interviews on local television and YouTube, even before the judge ruled probable cause existed to send Morphew to trial. Barry suffered the indignity of being wrongfully arrested, jailed, and prosecuted for a crime he did not commit. Iton told the U.S. Sun in a prepared statement, "We will not rest until those responsible for this miscarriage of justice are held accountable." Stanley later hit out against Iton's allegations, telling the Denver Gazette, "Miss Iton appears to be seeking to circumvent the procedures in place that protect due process by holding a press conference before any official action has taken place. Her prosecution team never willfully or purposely withheld evidence or would withhold evidence in any case," Stanley added. Suzanne Morphew was reported missing on May 10th, Mother's Day, 2020. Barry had left the couple's home in Maysville, east of Salida, that morning to drive to a job 150 miles away in Broomfield, Colorado. The couple's daughters were away on a camping trip and making their way home. They texted their mother wishing her a happy Mother's Day, but received no response. Their eldest daughter, Mallory, texted Barry to inform him she couldn't get a hold of Suzanne. He then called one of their neighbors and asked them to go and check on Suzanne and to see if her mountain bike was still at the house. The bike was nowhere to be seen, and Barry instructed the neighbor to call the police. Instead of heading home immediately, he dropped off a shovel and some tools for his co-workers at a hotel before driving home sometime around 6 p.m. Days of extensive search efforts were staged by the police and volunteers from the public, but no sign of Suzanne was found. And finally, on May 15th, her bike was discovered on the side of a cliff a short distance from the family home. No clothing, blood, or evidence of a struggle were ever found near the bike, and Suzanne's helmet was discovered around a mile away off the side of a nearby highway. Her sunglasses and hydration backpack had previously been found inside her car, leading investigators to summarize the scene may have been staged and that Suzanne never really went for a bike ride on the morning that she vanished. Months would pass without answers, but evidence would be revealed in this case. Barry Morphew sold his family's home in March of 2021, and he was arrested 2 months later. Hey, Jerry, how are you? I'm good, thank you. How are you doing? Thanks, Mandy Ray. I appreciate you. He was originally facing first-degree murder and tampering with evidence and attempting to influence a public servant, charges in connection to Suzanne's disappearance, according to his arrest affidavit. In the affidavit, prosecutors said it had become clear that Barry could not control Suzanne Morphew's insistence on leaving him, and he resorted to something he has done his entire life: hunt and control Suzanne like he had hunted and controlled animals. During a hearing later that year, investigators ripped apart Barry's assertions that he and Suzanne shared a happy marriage by revealing that she had been having a months-long affair with Jeff Libler, a married dad of 6, whom they had gone to high school with in their hometown of Alexandria, Indiana. It was Libler who received one of Suzanne's last correspondences, a bikini selfie that she took in the garden of her home on May the 9th. The prosecution detailed how a spent tranquilizer cartridge was found inside the laundry room of the Morphew's $1.3 million home and that Barry had scratches on his arms and his hands in the days after Suzanne vanished. Suzanne had complained of his controlling behavior to friends and family and was planning to divorce him prior to her suspected death. In one text message shared with the court, Suzanne wrote to Barry, "I'm done. I could care less what you're up to and have been for years." According to court documents, data from Barry Morphew's phone and digital forensic information from his truck showed his cell phone moving around the house on Saturday, May the 9th, the same day investigators believe that Suzanne was killed. When asked about the movements, Morphew alleged to investigators that he had simply been out shooting chipmunks around the house. Prosecutors shared additional cell phone data appearing to show that Morphew had switched his phone to airplane mode for several hours that day. The next day, when Suzanne was reported missing, Barry checked into the hotel in Broomfield and was seen bringing bags of items into his room. And according to court documents, Morphew told the FBI on April 22nd of 2021 that he looks guilty from the evidence, while suggesting that his wife's murder was a form of God's judgment for her alleged affair with Libler. The charges Barry Morphew faced were later dropped during a pretrial hearing almost exactly a year later on April 19th of 2022. Fremont County District Judge Ramsey Lama granted the prosecution's motion to dismiss the case without prejudice while they continue to search for Suzanne's body. Without this crucial evidence and without the victim's body, the people cannot move forward at this time in good faith, the prosecutors wrote. Barry and his two daughters sat down for an exclusive interview with ABC News weeks later. "I just love my girls and I love my wife and I just want her to be found," he told the network. The case still remains active and they are actively working it. And for those of you who are supporters of my channel and have been here for a while, you all know that my good friend GonZo, he is diligently working to help find Suzanne. So GonZo works cases behind the scene. He's amazing in what he does, and we love him very much for all that he gives to these cases. Trust me. But now that he's opened up in this lawsuit Barry has, anything's possible, because when you have a lawsuit like this, you're able to be deposed. And he will be required to give a deposition. And they can ask him all kinds of questions about the murder in the deposition. So it'll be interesting to see how that works for him. Yeah, Mitzi, she was riding her bike, is what the story has been told. That was his story, that she went for a bike ride. They did find her bike, but they didn't find her. And I honestly do not think that that she actually did a bike ride. They think that was staged. Oh, Mitzi, thank you so much for your super sticker. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. So, that case, like I said, the anniversary's coming up. She's been on my mind. And I didn't want, excuse me, not give her proper coverage at this time, because it will be 3 years. And because of where they live in the mountains, he could have disposed of her body anywhere. And in doing so, it snows and freezes in the winter. And so there's lots of things that can happen to a body that's disposed of in the mountains and in the forests of the mountains. So he did have that on his side, but I believe they will find her. I'm I'm hanging on to that. So I wanted to talk tonight again about what's happening at Lady Bird Lake in Austin, Texas. Yeah, we're going to talk about Texas. But bodies have been discovered along the water for years at Lady Bird Lake. And a string of deaths has the investigators denying a serial offender, but everybody online just can't stop talking about it. And there have been other law enforcement agencies from around the country that have looked at this and said, this has the telltale signs of a serial offender. And online sleuths are fearing the worst. And we've talked about this case a little bit, but I thought we would get into it a little bit more tonight. So if you're keeping up with the reboot of this, you guys, if any of you guys watch Criminal Minds, the reboot, Evolution, you guys know that they have spent the first season digging into the possibility of a serial killer network that was created during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we know Criminal Minds is a fictional TV story or TV show. But the idea of a serial killer network isn't far off. Recently, it's been talked about that online sleuths have been exploring the possibility of a potential serial killer group that's operating near Lady Bird Lake, located in Austin, Texas. Bodies have been discovered along the water for years, and considering the waterfront is near a very popular and populated night spots where rumors of roofie attacks run rampant, it's only adding to the online fuel in this case. Now, if for those that haven't been to Austin, downtown Austin, Texas is one of the most popular area for tourists and locals to go. It has a lot of different bars, a lot of outdoor activities, a view of the skyline. There's a hike and bike trail along Lady Bird Lake, and it's just feet from the end of Rainey Street. And, you know, the nightlife in Austin is world renowned. The music, all of it. So there's a hike and bike trail, you guys, along Lady Bird Lake, and it's just feet from the end of Rainey Street. And just on that street corner alone, 4 bodies have been recovered along the shore this year in 2023. The situation out of Austin has been gaining traction and attention amongst armchair detectives thanks to the Facebook group Lady Bird Lake Serial Killer / Rainey Street Killer, which has begun to document the cases. The group, which was created on February 14th, 2023, has over 70,000 members and is growing daily. Some members in the group have suggested that these cases are so eerily similar to the smiley face killer, and that's a killer or killers responsible for the deaths of at least 45 college-aged men in several Midwestern states from the late 1990s to the 2010s. In most of these cases, the cause of death is listed as accidental drowning, just like in the Austin cases. Now, just from the sheer number of victims and the fact that there are so many in a short period of time, I don't believe that is accidental, Kevin Gannon, who's a retired New York Police Department detective, said. And he's been investigating the smiley face killer's theory as the private eye told Fox News. He believes the Austin victims are being taken to the waterfront and aren't going on their own volition and accidentally drowning. Gannon notes that it takes effort to get down to the waterfront from these popular nighttime bars. And stoking more fears in the smiley face killer cell theories, locals have also noticed an uptick of smiley face graffiti in and around the Lady Bird Lake area. Is it coincidence? Is it related to a serial killer cell? Or is it someone just simply playing a prank? Investigators seem to believe nothing is out of the ordinary in any of these cases. And that's concerning enough. Although these cases are all still under investigation and evidence is being analyzed at this time, there is no evidence of any of these cases to support allegations of foul play, Austin police said in a statement. While each incident has occurred at the lake, the circumstances, exact locations, and demographics surrounding the cases vary. The police believes that haven't stopped online sleuths, however, from drawing possible victimology connections in these cases. The individuals found deceased are mostly white men with olive complexions whose ages vary between 20 to 40 years of age. They are well educated, and a majority of them hold computer-related occupations. These cases are being classified as accidental drownings at this time, and the local media and the local medical examiner is only conducting autopsies as the family's request. So they're not doing autopsies on all of these victims, only if the family requests it. In an April 3rd statement, Austin police said autopsies have not revealed any trauma to the bodies, and therefore foul play is not suspected in any of the deaths. However, I'm here to say we all know that are in the true crime world that just because you don't have trauma to a body doesn't mean that a person was not murdered. There are many ways to commit that act without showing trauma. Some have speculated that this is because the autopsies are only testing for cocaine, alcohol, and marijuana, among some other drugs. However, they are not testing for synthetic drugs. Even though many of these cases have been classified as accidental drownings, according to the February 2023 Chief's report, online sleuths are quick to point out that their data does not match the numbers listed in the police incident report database. Specifically, there have been no drownings reported. And after a TikTok went viral, it put more eyes on this ongoing story. Many of the victims' family members feel that there is much more to the story that is being reported by police. So who are the victims that are being dropped and that are dying by Lady Bird Lake? Unfortunately, there is limited information about these cases. Imagine that. Some news outlets have reported on the victim's manner and cause of death, but that information has not been made publicly available for all of the victims. Listed in the chronological order, a database has been created based on the date of the discovery of the body, and I wanted to take a look at that. So here are the victims of Lady Bird Lake. The first victim was in 2014, October 13, Aaron David Rublik, 25. In 2015, there were two victims. On June the 10th, Julius Santos III, 22. November 29th, Santiago Gonzalez Becerra, age 33. In 2016, there were 2 victims. May 14th, Daniel Michael, age 43, and June 18th, Fernando Domingo Ortiz, age 35. In 2017, there were 2 victims. April 15th, Tia Shane Brooks, age 24, and June 17th, Joshua Head, age 43. In 2018, there were 6 victims. May 29th, Jesse Perry, age 61. June 12th, Ray Figueroa, age 61. July 25th, Walter Jack Warnarowski, age 44. And August 15th, Luis Alberto Ramirez, age 37. November 26th, Martin Gutierrez, age 25. And December 7th, Randy Lexvold, age 48. There were no deaths in 2019 or 2020, but in 2021, there was one. May 24th, Eric Manzanares Medrano, 26 years old. In 2022, January 6th, Rosel Rosario Lopez, his age is unknown. And in 2023, we have 4 so far this year. February 13th, Jason John, age 30. March 5th, Clifton Axtell, age 41. April 1st, Jonathan Honey, age 33. And April 15th, John Christopher Hayes Clark, age 30. In 2014, Aaron David Rulbrick was found deceased on Saturday, October 13th, after witnesses noticed a body floating in Lady Bird Lake. He was 25. Aaron was last seen with his friends on Thursday, October the 9th. According to KVUE, he called an Uber home to Rainey Street at around 2:30 a.m., but was dropped off near the Holiday Inn near the Interstate 35. Police believe Aaron may have been walking too close to the water and fell in. It just doesn't make sense. 2015, one of the bodies was pulled from the Lady Bird Lake on June 10th, 2015, Julio Santos III, and he was reported missing 2 days earlier. Julio was a recent UNT graduate where he double majored in merchandising and digital retailing. According to KVUE, he was last seen at the East 6th and Red River Streets around 2:30 a.m. Interesting, the same time of day as the previous person. KVUE also reports that Austin PD said Julio's death appeared suspicious, but then the medical examiner found no signs of suspicious trauma. His death had been ruled a drowning. Santiago Gonzalez Becerra was found deceased on Sunday, November 29th at 10:30 a.m. by a canoer. He was 33 years old, and his sister reported him missing 3 days before his body was found. And according to officials, a cause of death has not been released. But the medical examiner again said that there was no suspicious trauma to the body. Fernando Domingo Ortiz was found in the Colorado River on June 18th, 2016. His body was discovered by 2 people fishing, and a call was made to authorities at 3:02 p.m. He was 35 years old, according to Austin Statesman. He was identified by his thumbprint from a Department of Public Safety record. He had a large family. He loved to fish and make people laugh. Daniel Michael was found deceased on May 14th, 2017. He was 43 years old and was wearing a University Medical Center Breckenridge hospital gown. It is believed that earlier that day he left that facility against medical advice. Daniel was described as a sweet-natured human being with a sense of humor. The police do not believe that Daniel's death was suspicious. Hey, Babs Forever, how are you? Tia Shane Brooks was found in Waller Creek on April 15th. Her body was found near the 4th and I-35. She was 24 years old. Tia would be the first known female victim. The Austin Statesman reports that Austin police responded to a call of a person drowning at 3:16 a.m. Sadly, by 4:14 a.m., Tia was pronounced deceased at the scene. Her cause of death was determined accidental drowning. I still say this, that the time of death for these people at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning is very interesting. Joshua Head was found on Friday, June 17th by a paddleboarder, and he was 43 years old. They do not believe his death is suspicious. On 2018, Jesse Perry was found in Waller Creek on May 29th. A few days later, he was identified, and he was 61 years old. His death was ruled accidental drowning. Ray Figueroa was found June 12th. On July 26th, he was identified after a non-working cell phone was found and data was extracted. He also was 61 years old. His cause of death has not been released publicly. And Austin police say they are investigating his death as non-suspicious. Walter Jack Warnowski was found deceased along Waller Creek on July 25th. He was identified in August. He was 44 years old. While no cause of death has been released, police do not believe foul play was involved. Luis Alberto Ramirez's body was found floating in Lady Bird Lake on August 15th. He was 37 years old, and police do not believe foul play was involved. The cause of death has not been released. Martin Gutierrez was found deceased on November 26, 2018, after someone reported an individual in the water near 1300 Riverside Drive. He was reported missing on November 19th. He was a graduate of Texas Tech. Martin's cause of death was accidental, and his manner of death was accidental. However, the autopsy did note blunt force trauma to the back of his head. There was bruising on his scalp and swelling in his brain and chest cavities. Randy Lexvold was found deceased on December 7th, 2018, around 8:30 a.m. in Shoal Creek. He was 48 years old and visiting from out of state. According to his credit card history, he made a purchase at a rooftop bar around 10:30 p.m. on December 6th. He worked for a software development company, Agile Craft. Per his autopsy, the cause of death was drowning, but the manner of death is undetermined. There was blunt force trauma, but officials believe that was a result of him falling from a bridge into the water. In 2021, Eric Manzanares Medrano was found deceased on May 24th, 2021, when bystanders noticed his body in Lady Bird Lake. He was 26 years old. Authorities stated that his death was not considered suspicious. According to a report on Austin Facebook post, he was reported missing by his family May 22nd of 2021. Rosel Rosario Lopez was found deceased on January 6, 2022. There is very little information available about Rosel. However, according to an Austin police report, his death was accidental. Jason John was found on February 13, 2023, near Lady Bird Lake. He was 30 years old. He was last seen February 5th walking towards Lady Bird Lake Trail, and his family had reported him missing. Jason's death was ruled an accidental drowning. The police do not suspect foul play. Clifton Axtell was found deceased on March 5th, 2023, near 300 and 400 West Riverside Drive. No cause or manner of death have been released yet, and the police do not suspect foul play. Jonathan Honey was found deceased on April 1st, 2023. He was last seen at a taco truck on Rainey Street around 2 a.m. Friday, March 31st. He was 33 years old. Austin police do not suspect foul play. Again, note the time, 2 a.m. John Christopher Hayes Clark was found deceased on April 15th near the 2700 block of Canterbury Street. He was 30 years old. The investigation is ongoing. I don't know how they can possibly think that these cases may not be related. I don't think they've done enough investigating. They haven't even done autopsies on all of them. It's ridiculous. Hey, Isaac, thank you so much for joining. They are very suspicious. They haven't checked for that drug. And Maria says this is shortly after closing time for the bars in Austin. And I agree with Sharon. If these deaths were accidental, some deaths would be women. These are all men. Oh, you're so welcome, Babs. Thank you so much. And I agree, Ray. It sounds like police didn't think these men were worth the effort. Could it be that these men have something else that may be in common? Are these men gay? It is a question that I have. I've seen a few pictures. One of them, I guarantee you, is he's wearing makeup. He has long hair. I almost think that he might be a trans for some reason. I'm not positive on that, but it leads me to wonder, or to throw that question out there. Is someone targeting these men because of sexual orientation? There has to be something that connects these victims besides the fact of the time of day when they're all disappearing and dying. I mean, it's just crazy. Mitzi says it would be easy to drink a friend's beer at a bar if they were next to each other. That would explain the female victim, in my opinion. These seem targeted. I so agree with you. They do seem targeted. And it's very possible that these guys are being roofied in some way. Hey, Melissa, how are you? Good to see you. There was one woman in there. In all of those people, and since 2014, there's been one woman. So I can definitely see how online sleuthers are thinking there's a problem here. And I'm glad that they're looking at it and examining it, because whoever said up in chat that online people can make a difference, they can. When you have a lot of eyes looking at something, it really does help. Now, remember, they're not releasing all the information on these victims. So that becomes a problem. And again, that's a red flag to me. Why are some of the victims' information out there and being talked about, and other victims, we don't know what their cause or manner of death was, and there's been no autopsies? Those are all questions that need to be asked of the police. So we're going to keep a tab on this, what's going on down there, because I think it's interesting that they went 2 years without any deaths at the lake. And it makes me wonder if somebody was incarcerated at the time. Is this a ring? Is this some kind of a group of a network of serial killers? I mean, is this something that's got something to do with the smiley face killer. It's very, very interesting because, 45 college-aged men in several Midwestern states that are now deceased, that were all listed as accidental drownings. I can see how people in Austin looking at this from the outside would say, wow, we have the smiley face killer in our midst. So I can see that. And especially when they have graffiti and stuff showing up with the smiley faces all of a sudden as well. But yeah, we're going to keep a close eye on this one. One of the other cases I wanted to bring up to you guys is the Lauren Hake case out of Phoenix. She was the hiker who was stabbed 15 times. The court documents revealed. Just a horrible scenario. She was found dead on a North Phoenix trail last weekend, and we do have an arrest. They did finally make an arrest this week. Zion William Teasley, age 22, is being accused of first-degree murder. The police have alleged that he stabbed her 15 times, but the motive is unclear. He did tell investigators after they arrested him in interrogation that he has been having issues with his sexuality. So it's unclear what that exactly means. He did say that he wanted to look like her. I do believe at this time the attack was random. However, we do not have a conclusion in our investigation yet, said Lieutenant Hester. The suspect has a criminal history. Court documents have given us a glimpse into who this Teasley person is and what his criminal past was, which includes previous charges for robbery, kidnapping, and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. They stemmed from a string of 7 thefts that occurred repeatedly at 2 convenience stores between May 15th to July 4th of 2020. And according to the documents, Teasley would often inform clerks that he was committing a robbery, jumping behind the counter and directing them to put hundreds of dollars on Google Play cards. On one occasion, court documents said Teasley pointed a gun at a clerk. He was arrested shortly thereafter and eventually pled guilty. And as a result of his plea deal, he served jail time from July of 2021 until November of 2022. According to Teasley's pretrial services court report, he was only given a 2 for his new criminal activity score. As for the case involving Heike's murder, investigators said Teasley was arrested at the apartment complex where he lived. That apartment complex is approximately 1.5 miles away from the crime scene. And DNA, video, and cell phone evidence all link him to this crime, the prosecutors are alleging. A judge set his bond at $1 million. And however, since Teasley is on probation for a past conviction, he could remain behind bars, and it sounds like it might be a good idea to keep him there. Prosecutors say the 22-year-old had a plane ticket to Detroit, and he told investigators it was because his aunt had died, but that has yet to be confirmed. He was due to leave the day after they arrested him. He is the same man who was seen in the blurry surveillance footage running from the trail around the time that Lauren was attacked. And that footage was all over social media and the news. We have also learned that Teasley's mother works for the Maricopa County Adult Probation Department. We asked if Teasley's mother had assisted him in any, or had assisted the police in any way. but officials say that she has refused to speak with authorities. Now, the authorities have said that DNA video evidence led to Teasley's arrest. And according to the documents that were released, she was found with 15 stab wounds. There were also defensive wounds on her hands and her forearms, so she fought for her life. Investigators suspect that the woman had been chased down over a barbed wire fence at some point during the ordeal, based on the condition of her clothes. Her belongings were found scattered along the trail. Security cameras in the area recorded Lauren and the suspect walking along the same path within a short time frame around the time of the murder. The suspect ran after Lauren and then sprinted away before returning to the location where Lauren's body was found and climbing over the barbed wire. And that was in his probable cause statement. Lauren's shoe was found near the barbed wire fence, and authorities say his DNA, Teasley's DNA, was found on the shoe during a preliminary analysis. Detectives discovered that Teasley had recently been fired from his job for being aggressive toward female employees and for being suspected of stealing products. His former employer identified the suspect recorded on the video as Teasley, and the management told police that he was wearing clothing that he had recently stolen from their store. Police say the man was known to carry a pocket knife with a 3-inch blade, which is consistent with the wounds that was found on Lauren's body. Cell phone data recording his location reportedly matched the surveillance video evidence. In his interview with police, Teasley stated that he talked about his life as a Christian and his struggles with his sexuality, but it's unclear how this could have played a role in the crime. When asked why police had arrested him, "There's no freaking way I am here for a sex crime. I haven't been with anyone for a very long time," read the probable cause statement. Teasley reportedly claimed to recognize Lauren from the news, but struggled to say that she was murdered and said he could not recall if he had ever met her in person. When police asked if he planned to kill her, he responded, "I am definitely not the person who plans to kill another person. If I was going to do something like that, it wouldn't be premeditated." Video showed the moments officers arrested the suspect. The viewer, Amber Winter, watched as this was happening, and she was walking her pet when she saw it, and she started recording it. It was around 6 p.m. She said she was walking her dog, and she saw about 3 SWAT trucks come in and 15 undercover vehicles pulling up to a building. They literally blew the door down, went in screaming, "Get on the ground, get on the ground." They detained the supposed suspect and brought him out. He sat there for a while they went inside and were searching and were interviewing people. The body of 29-year-old Lauren Heike was found on April 29th along a trail in North Phoenix near Mayo Boulevard and Scottsdale Road. Lauren was found to have trauma to her body. According to a person living in the area, it was his wife who discovered Lauren's body while she was walking her dog. They were familiar with Lauren because she hiked the trail often and lived in an apartment complex nearby. So that's what we know about her case. It's just horrific. It sounds like he attacked her, stabbed her in the back, stabbed her. I mean, it's just terrible. Just terrible. To think that you can't even go out for a jog and be safe, or go out on a trail that you're used to going out and having to just live in fear. It's just pathetic. But it's the truth, and women have to be more diligent. I mean, Um, it's the truth, Isaac. It's absolutely the truth. You just can't. And women have to just become more diligent and more aware than we've ever been. It's so sad. One thing that they did find out about Zion Teasley is he was a recently released felon and a one-time Marine. And he appeared in an Arizona court last Friday and was charged with the murder of her. And that's when they found out in court that she had been stabbed 15 times in her back and chest. The prosecutors said in the filing and being in court on Friday that there was a confluence of evidence, including people who ID'd him as the man seen running from the murder scene less than a mile from his home. And that's me, he told the cops when shown images from the video, according to police documents in the case. When asked why police had arrested him, though, that's when he came up with there's no freaking way I'm here for a sex crime. But he was linked with other evidence besides they've got DNA evidence on him and all of the other forensic evidence. So knowing that he's been aggressive with women and he'd been fired from his job, there's just so many red flags on this guy. And what's sad, it's something that True Crime Maria and I talked about earlier this week. I am so tired of seeing these guys who have these violent histories being released before they should have been. We've got this guy who gets out and murders. We've got the guy in Oklahoma that gets out and murders. It's just unbelievable to me. Hold on. So I was going to talk about him next. There's been a ton of outrage online about the Oklahoma case where the sex offender rapist, who authorities say shot to death his wife, her 3 children, and their 2 friends, and then killed himself, was freed from prison early, despite facing new sex charges in a separate case. Those questions include how he was released on good behavior when the new charges were for soliciting nude images from a teenager while he was still in prison. Why was he released on $25,000 bond? And how was a man convicted of raping a teenager able to live with teenage girls? None of that makes any sense. And somebody needs to answer for these questions, because there are 5 victims that didn't 6 victims, I apologize, that didn't need to lose their lives because of this man, had he been kept in jail where he belonged. If things had gone differently in Oklahoma, in the criminal justice system there, family members of the victims said maybe their loved ones would still be alive. Jesse McFadden is the person who did this crime. A 39-year-old convicted rapist was scheduled to be in court on Monday for the start of a jury trial on charges that while in prison for rape, he used a contraband cell phone to solicit a 16-year-old girl and exchange nude photographs with her. Hey, Frank Meister, how are you, my dear? So good to see you. So good to see you, my friend. Um, those new felony charges against McFadden were filed in 2017, more than 3 years before he was released from prison in 2020. That's plenty of time to prosecute any criminal case on the face of the earth, said Brett Chapman, a former Tulsa County prosecutor who now works as a defense attorney who reviewed McFadden's case. What happened here? That should have been enough to keep him in jail. Chapman also said the $25,000 bond McFadden was released on was way too low. Muskogee County District Attorney Larry Edwards, whose office was prosecuting the 2017 charges against McFadden, has not returned multiple telephone messages seeking comment. Now, there's a surprise. But McFadden's defense attorney, Rex Earl Starr, said the death of McFadden's first attorney and the COVID-19 pandemic led to long delays in the prosecution. Still, Starr said he spoke to McFadden on Sunday, the day before he and the 6 victims were found deceased, on his rural property east of Henrietta, a town of about 6,000, about 90 miles east of Oklahoma City, and didn't suspect anything was wrong. There was no indication whatsoever we wouldn't be ready to select a jury at noon on Monday. But in a series of ominous messages with the teenager whom he'd allegedly been texting while he was behind bars, McFadden vowed not to return to prison. According to screen grabs of the messages forwarded to KOKI in Tulsa, McFadden said his great life was crumbling and blamed the teenager for the latest set of charges against him that could put him back in prison for decades. A solicitation conviction can mean a 10-year sentence. The pornography charge would mean 20 years behind bars. Now it's all gone, he texted. I told you I won't go back. This is all on you for continuing this, he said. A spokeswoman for the Oklahoma Department of Corrections said in a statement McFadden was able to earn credits for things like good behavior and completing programs and education assignments that were then applied after he served 85% of his sentence. Spokeswoman Kay Thompson added that registered sex offenders are allowed to live with their own children and stepchildren as long as they are not a victim of the offender. McFadden was not given probation or parole upon his release, but he did have to register as a sex offender and check in every 90 days with the sheriff's office, which Okmulgee County Police Chief Joe Prentice said McFadden had done. McFadden's prison record shows he had at least 10 misconduct offenses during his 17 years in prison, including consensual sexual activity with other offenders, positive drug tests, and possession of tobacco. The DOC did not address why McFadden was released despite facing new felony charges, but his attorney, Starr, said there was no legal mechanism to keep him incarcerated when he had finished serving his sentence. The simple answer is that he is innocent until proven guilty. It's a basic constitutional provision. After McFadden was released from prison, he was arraigned in Muskogee County on the new charges of soliciting a minor and possessing images of child sexual abuse, but was released on $25,000 bond. Relatives of the victims were in disbelief by McFadden's early release, especially in light of the seriousness of the new charges against him. And they rushed him out of prison. How? Asked Janet Mayo of Westville, whose daughter Holly Guess and her grandchildren, Riley Elizabeth Allen, Michael James Mayo, and Tiffany Dorr Guess, were among those killed. Oklahoma failed to protect these families, and because of that, my children, my daughter, and my grandchildren are all gone, Mayo said. The other victims were 14-year-old Ivy Webster and 16-year-old Brittany Brewer. Justin Webster, who said he allowed Ivy to join a sleepover at the McFadden home, not knowing anything about the man's past, raised similar concerns. There needs to be repercussions, and somebody needs to be held accountable that they let this monster out. Prosecutors in his original rape case objected to an early release from prison, noting that McFadden had tied a 17-year-old's hands and feet to bedposts, cut her shirt off, and raped her at knife point. At one point, he threatened to use the knife on her if she didn't shut up. McFadden married Holly Guess in May of 2022, and what she knew of his record isn't clear. Mayo said the family didn't learn about her son-in-law's criminal history until a few months ago. He lied to my daughter, Mayo said. He convinced her it was all just a huge mistake. Shauna Cleary, who teaches several courses on criminal justice at the University of Central Oklahoma, who wrote a book titled Sex Offenders and Self-Control, explaining sexual violence, said it's common for sex offenders like McFadden to charm and manipulate those around him. Either she was unaware of what he did, or she believed what he was selling, and she was willing to marry him. Cleary said there is a need in Oklahoma for closer supervision and treatment for people convicted of crimes, particularly sex offenses. After their release from prison, although she acknowledged there often isn't treatment available in much of the state. It's not available in all 77 counties, and very few people want to do that kind of work. Well, all I can say is that I don't believe that these people can be rehabilitated. And that's my opinion on this. And secondly, I don't know if you guys have been following this case, but the family of the victim, the Mayo family, went into this house where they lived, and you ought to see the conditions in this house. He had boards along the beds and where he had restraints where you could restrain them to the wall, to the bed. They found neck collars to put around necks. There was just, unbelievable amount of sexual paraphernalia, for a better word, for lack of a better word. And they just found incredible stuff. And here's this guy, in my opinion, who should have been on probation. Why did God's name he wasn't for what he had done? Makes no sense. And he should have had to have been checking in. They should have had to have checked in on him and checked his home living situation. As previously stated, he was living with 3 teenagers. And he also had friends who were coming over and obviously spending the night. These kids didn't have a chance. Hey, Captain, how are you? So good to see you. You have been missed, my friend. Welcome, welcome. And this crime is, like I said, is so sad in so many ways. They just dropped the ball. And Oklahoma's got a lot of answering to do. A lot of answering to do for what happened here. And I know that it's easy to look at stuff afterwards and start throwing people under the bus, but this is just blatant, unbelievable mistakes. And it cost 6 people their lives. 5 children. And, it's just beyond me. I did want to bring up, I didn't know if you guys knew about this or not, but I found this interesting this week, that newly discovered evidence supports that the Menendez brothers' claims of sexual abuse by their parents. So there's new evidence. Lawyers for Eric and Lyle Menendez, the Beverly Hills brothers, convicted of murdering their parents in 1989, have filed what they claim is newly discovered evidence that should earn their clients a new trial. If you guys don't remember this, I do. This was another trial that I lived through. This was a trial before OJ's trial. And this was pretty high on the trial list as far as it was televised. A letter written by Eric Menendez to his cousin in December of 1988, 8 months before the brothers shot and killed Jose and Kitty Menendez on August 20th, 1989, purportedly corroborates allegations of sexual abuse. Los Angeles Magazine reported on Wednesday. The letter was part of a habeas corpus petition filed Tuesday by attorney Mark Garagos, who represents the brothers. Garagos is also co-owner of Los Angeles Magazine's parent company. Garagos also submitted a declaration from a one-time member of the Latin boy band Menudo, alleging that Jose Menendez, then a music executive, sexually abused him in the 1980s. In short, the new evidence not only shows that Jose Menendez was very much a violent and brutal man who would sexually abuse children, but it strongly suggests that, in fact, he was still abusing Eric Menendez as late as December of 1988. The motion says, just as the defense had argued all along. Eric's letter to his cousin Andy Cano conveys chilling information to Andy. In the letter, including fears that Eric had that his father would hurt him and that his mother would not protect him. At times, I wish I could talk to her, Kitty, about things, the letter says. Someday, especially Dad and I, but the way she worships him and tells him everything, I am so afraid she'll tell him whatever I say, and I just can't risk it. And the letter continues. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. I can't explain it. He's so overweight that I can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid. You just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle. Am I a serious wimpus? I don't know if I can make it through this. I can't handle it. Andy, I need to stop thinking about it. The second newly revealed item of evidence Garagos says should be considered favorable to the brothers is a declaration from Roy Rosello, a former member of the Puerto Rican pop band Menudo. In a declaration signed in April of 2023, Rosello describes surviving sexual abuse at the hands of Jose Mendez. Revelations first revealed for a documentary called Menendez plus Menudo. Music producer Edgardo Diaz created the band in 1977. Rosello joined the band in the 1980s when Jose Mendez was an executive at RCA Records, where the band had a multi-year deal, according to Garagos' petition. During a band trip to New York in the fall of 1983 or 1984, Rosello says that Diaz asked Rosello to do a favor and join Jose Menendez in a limousine. Roy did so and was taken to a home in New Jersey, given wine by Jose Menendez, and then raped. Roy lost consciousness and woke up back in his hotel. He was in unbearable pain and bleeding, and the pain lasted for well over a week. Rosello attested to 2 more instances of sexual abuse. Had jurors seen this letter that Eric Menendez wrote to Andy Cano and learned that Jose Mendez was sexually assaulted and at the age of 13 in 1984, the prosecutor would not have been able to argue that the abuse never happened. There is no corroboration of sexual abuse. Jose Menendez was not that kind of man that would abuse children and was not a violent and brutal man. And that is what was argued at trial. The Menendez brothers were initially tried in 1993 in a single trial, but before two separate juries, resulting in hung juries for both brothers. They were tried again in 1995, and this time before a single jury, and without, Garagos says, crucial defense evidence that was allowed in the first trial. According to the filing, jurors in the first trial heard testimony from Andy Cano, the cousin who received Eric's letter, that when Eric was 12 or 13 years old, Eric told him that his father was giving him massages that were inappropriate. Eric asked Andy if his father did the same thing and swore him to secrecy. Jurors also heard from the other cousins and witnesses who testified that they had seen Jose physically abuse Lyle and Eric, including by punching Lyle in the chest and stomach and ordering him to learn to be a man. One cousin testified that when she was visiting the family during the summer of 1976, when Lyle was 8 years old, that he came to her bedroom and asked if he could sleep in her room because he and his dad had been doing inappropriate things and he didn't want to do it anymore. When the cousin told Kitty Menendez about this, she dragged Lyle away by the arm. Prosecutors argued that Eric Menendez, then 18, and Lyle, then 21, killed their parents out of greed and pointed to a post-slaying spending spree by the brothers, including a Porsche, a house, clothes, jewelry, and a restaurant. But the brothers were ultimately convicted of murdering their parents and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And this week, it sounds like they are petitioning for a new trial based upon the new evidence. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for them. I have to tell you, I did follow the case. I followed the trial. And all I can tell you is that I certainly believed them. When I saw them testify to the abuse, I believed it. But anyway, guys, those are the cases that I wanted to cover with you tonight. A lot. There's a lot going on there. Hey, Diamond Eyes, how are you? Good to see you. You know, Miracle Heart, it's unsuspecting parents dropping their childs off for a sleepover. It's so scary. You know, when I was a teenager, you know, we did sleepovers. It was a huge thing. We did them all the time. But our parents knew each other. Our parents knew our friends. They knew our friends' parents. And I never, ever got to stay at a house where my parents didn't know the people that I would be staying there with. But I don't want to throw these parents under a bus because they've lost their children. What I will say is that parents need to be more diligent. That they need to absolutely be more diligent in their allowing their children to be around anyone that they don't know. And if you, I mean, I'm not saying that you should go out there and start doing background checks on people, but I am saying that it's important and imperative to get to know these people, because obviously, had they known that this man was a convicted child abuser, do you think for 1 second that they would have let their daughters go over there? and spend the night? No. Nobody in their right mind would do that, right? So it's really sad that we have to be this diligent in this day and age in 2023. But guys, these predators, I can't say it enough on my channel. These predators are everywhere. They are everywhere. And they're everywhere where your children are. They're everywhere where your grandchildren are, or your nieces or your nephews. And you have to be thinking that. You know, it used to be that you never wanted your kids to go to the bathroom by themselves in a public place. I mean, now it's you can't even think that they're going to be safe at school with their teachers, because teachers are abusing children. Your coaches are abusing children. The groups that your kids belong to, you know, they're soccer coaches, they're pack leaders for Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. And I mean, the list just keeps growing and growing and growing. And they're not going away. They're not going to go away. You know, I don't think it's increased, Diamond Eyes. I really don't. I don't think it's increased. I think people are more aware. And I think people are talking about it now. Hey, Lewis, how are you? Good to see you. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Miracle Hearts. It's just constant. We just keep hearing about them. I'm not kidding you. When I'm sitting here during the week doing research for my channel and I'm looking at some of these police blotters and some of this stuff, I mean, the men that are being arrested for CSAM in this country all over the place and all the different professions is just insane. And like I said, we've got to teach our kids. We've got to teach them about, and it's not just strangers anymore. It used to be stranger danger, but now it's every danger, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to be somebody they know, and it's not a stranger. It's somebody that they know and somebody that they trust. So we have to really teach them and help them and try to protect them the best that we can. But anyway, guys, I really enjoyed tonight with you, and I hope you all had a good amount of information. I know I shared a lot with you. I threw a lot at you. And I know it's hard to understand why all this stuff keeps happening. You're right, Ray. These predators are always trying to get close to children. And that's, you know, it's sad they do. They're able to do it. And what they're doing to these children are ruining their lives. They steal their innocence. And we can't keep allowing it. And we certainly, once we catch them and put them in jail, we need to stop letting them out. So if it's the law that's wrong, we need to change the laws, because this is not working, in my opinion. And on that note, I'm going to tell you all good night. Thank you so much for being here. Plan on joining me on Tuesday morning, guys. Sometime during the day on Tuesday, I will get my thumbnail up no later than Monday for what's going on. But if you guys have the time and you want to, jump in on a weekday, please feel free, because I'm going to give it a go and see how that works out. I know that I have a lot of subscribers that are online during the day, so I thought that this was a great way to get other people involved in the channel as well. It's okay, Lewis. That talk about religion is fine with me. I just don't want to get into an argument about religion with people, because I'm a Christian and I'm not afraid to admit it, but I don't want to argue religion with people. Yes, Sharon, you're right. Sometimes it can be women who are the offenders. I know personally a friend who I would have never in my wildest dreams thought that she would have been capable of what she did. And she actually had a sexual relationship with a child who was in the 7th grade. And this was a very prominent woman who had a high profile marriage. And I'm not kidding you. It blew everyone away when it came out. So they're everywhere. Yeah, it's one reason why I chose not to. I did not want to cover that case. That's one reason why I did not cover the case. That case, I knew going into it, if I covered it, it was going to be a nightmare. So I decided not to. So yeah, Miracle Hearts, terrible, absolutely terrible. And what it did to her family, it broke them apart. And what was sad about it is she ended up getting cancer and she passed away. But it absolutely, it tarnished the name, their family name. It was just never the same for them. And I felt bad for her daughters. So, but thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much for being here. And the rest of you guys have a great weekend. Please be safe out there and make sure that you pay it forward if you get a chance, and always be kind, because it doesn't take anything to be kind, and we need more kindness in this world. Good night, everybody, and have a safe and blessed rest of your week.